Hello friends, my name is Amber and this is a Lovely Yarn podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. Today is, I never remember to look before I start filming. It's Tuesday, September 19th, and I am so excited to film this podcast. I feel like I have some really exciting knitting stuff going on right now, so I have lots to talk about. I have a colorwork sweater that I'm currently working on. I literally just started it, I don't know, last Friday, Saturday, I don't even remember. I cannot remember when I started it. All I know is it's just been, I've been flying through it. I have some new yarn that is planned for a specific fall sweater that I will be talking about. I'm going to be talking about the Fall into Ranunculus knit along that I'm co-hosting with Diana and Kaity of the Fruitful Hands Knitting Podcast. So I'm going to be talking about that. I'm going to show you some of my, actually all of the ranunculi that I've made so far, including this one that I have on. This is one of them. So I'll talk about this a little bit more later in the podcast. And I have a lot to talk about today, and I'm really excited to be able to record and share with you all. So, first thing I want to talk about though is I discussed my fletching socks last week, and I had stated that it was hard for me to find the Peyton's Croy sock yarn anymore, where it used to be very easy because it was carried at Michael's crafting store, it was carried at Joanne Fabrics, Hobby Lobby used to carry it. I learned from you guys that Hobby Lobby does not carry it anymore. I don't have a Hobby Lobby close to me, so I never used that store as a consistent source for yarn. But yeah, they don't carry it anymore apparently, and Michael's does not, at least the Michael's stores around here do not carry it in store, but you can order it online, very limited quantities. And I think the same goes for a lot of Joanne stores, although I did find some at a Joanne store that was about an hour away. However, I talked about all of that last week, and then some viewers gave some suggestions on where to find it online. Mary Maxim is one of them. It's an online source. Now, the Canadian website has a way better selection. I wrote down here, I took notes, almost 60 color options in both striped and solids. Now they are $7.99 a skein there. Now I'm trying to think, was that Canadian dollars or US dollars? I think that was US dollars. I could be wrong. The US, maybe that is right. Maybe that's Canadian. The US Mary Maxim had only 11 choices. And those skeins were $4.99 a skein, and they were all either self-striping or marling, so they weren't the solid colors. So I would not use that as a source for myself if I'm going to make those fletching socks, because they're colorwork socks and I want to have two solids. Someone had mentioned Yarnspirations, and so I looked them up, and that particular store has 52 different color options, both striping, marling, striping, marling, and solid, and you can get it for $7.99 a skein. Now, I did pay $7.99, $8.99, I think it was $7.99 at Joanne Fabrics for the two that I purchased, which was the flax and the muslin, but I had a coupon, a 40% off coupon, so I was able to get one of those for 40% off. And these are just 50 gram skeins, so 166 yards. But as I talked about last episode, and you can go back and watch that if you want details on how much yarn I used, I was able to get one pair of socks out of one skein of the main color by kind of adapting the pattern a little bit. Okay, and then another source that I found on Etsy is a shop called Yarn Shop for You. I will link that particular shop down below. The other ones you guys are on your own to just Google them and find them. But I will because it's sometimes hard to find specific shops on Etsy. So I will go ahead and link that down below in case you're interested in where you can source some Peyton's Croy sock yarn, specifically here in the United States, because that is where I live. Okay, so that is all I wanted to say about that. I just wanted to, because so many of you seem to be interested in knitting those socks, and I really like that particular yarn for those socks. Actually, I know that I like Peyton's for socks. I've always liked Peyton's for socks because it's such a durable yarn, and I also like that it's a bit heavier because it's labeled as a fine, like it's classified as a 1, but it feels definitely more like a sport to me. Okay, so I got my window open because it is beautiful out, a little chilly. I'm good though. You can hear the crickets and the birds. I'm going to keep this window open for as long as I can because there will be a day soon that I will not be able to open my windows. In case you're new here, I am from Western Pennsylvania, and so we have all 4 seasons here, which is absolutely beautiful. I live in a very beautiful place. I never appreciated it much when I was younger, and then I started noticing people when they would visit from out of state, they would mention how beautiful the area was and all the hills and all the just the vegetation and the plants, and I just started to open my eyes up, and sometimes you just have to pretend like you're on vacation in the area you live in, and then you just appreciate it so much more. Do you know what I mean? So I'm growing to appreciate it. I actually do really appreciate it now, and even the different seasons. But yeah, windows open. It's beautiful, perfect weather today so far. And it is still early. It's not even 9 o'clock in the morning yet. So, okay, I want to talk to you, first of all, I don't have any finished objects because I really cleared off needles for my last episode. I showed you guys several finished objects, and it felt so good to have, I had nothing left. I had no unfinished objects except for a couple that I need to frog, so I don't even count those. But I knew I needed to start a colorwork sweater because I really love colorwork knitting, particularly stranded colorwork, which means you're knitting with, most of the time you're knitting with 2 different yarns, 2 different colors, and you're manipulating with both hands. So you're knitting both English and continental. I am going to do a whole colorwork sweater inspired episode. I've been gathering information for that slowly over the last month. So I will be talking about that. I've had people ask me how I knit colorwork, so I'm going to figure out how I can film like downwards so I can show you how I actually manipulate the yarn and use my hands when I'm knitting colorwork. Just a short clip just for those of you who are interested. And I'm going to include all of that in that colorwork episode. But having said that, I did want to ask if you have any favorite colorwork sweaters. This could be stranded, it could be striped, it could be mosaic. Colorwork means you're just using multiple colors and yarns in your project. If you have any favorites, go ahead and leave them in the comments below. I'd like to see what you guys all have enjoyed, and then possibly include that in a future episode. I have quite a few patterns already because I am such a fan of colorwork knitting. And so I have a lot. I may have to eliminate some of them, but I don't know. Maybe I'll just keep them all and just go through them more quickly and not go into so many details. But yeah, if you have a favorite colorwork sweater pattern, please comment below and let me know what it is so that I can check it out, because I'm, again, like, I always love videos that people talk about what patterns are inspiring them or what they're looking forward to knitting. A lot of podcasters are releasing episodes like that right now, like their fall or autumn knitting plans, and that's been so interesting. Actually, Diana and Kaity just did an episode like that on Sunday. It just went out Sunday night, and it was really fun. I just love, because sometimes you hear of patterns, often you hear of patterns that you've never even heard of before, so it's always such a fun kind of episode for me to watch. So I enjoy hearing what you guys enjoy knitting. So share below if you so are inclined. Okay, so what I want to talk about now is this most gorgeous colorwork yoke sweater. I mean, I love every colorwork sweater I've knit, but I just... let me just show it to you. Oh my gosh. I just love it so much. It's like, Okay, so this pattern is called the Maryanna sweater, and it is by Folk City Fiber Studio. She doesn't have a real big presence on Instagram. In fact, when I was trying to find her to tag her in one of my Instagram posts where I posted a picture of this, she's not even listed on there under Folk City Fiber Studio. I think her name's Heidi, and so it's under that. And she seemed, when I clicked on her account, she seemed to be more, was it pottery, ceramics, or maybe painting? I can't remember now. Not so much. I don't know if she's actively still designing patterns, but she does have a few on Ravelry. And as with all things, I will link this pattern down below in the video description. But I absolutely adore this yoke. It is so beautiful. Now, I did modify it. So let me put a picture of the original pattern up here. And you can see that mine is a little bit different in the yoke. And that was a matter of necessity because I ran out of yarn. In fact, I had to substitute some yarn in at the very end for the last 2 rounds of the color work because I ran out of yarn. So what I did was for the main body yarn, I am using this Cloudborn Fibers Highland Worsted in the Heather Gray. Now this, I'm pretty sure this is a discontinued yarn. I purchased quite a bit of Cloudborn back when Craftsy was a thing and they were carrying this yarn, and I don't know how much of this you might be able to find it on webs. I feel like somebody had told me that. This is classified as a worsted weight yarn. However, I knew okay, so this was the process of knitting this. I purchased this pattern, I think 2 years ago. So I had already owned this pattern. However, what I did was I knew I had a sweater's quantity of this yarn. So I knew I wanted to use this yarn as the main color for a colorwork sweater. And then I was going to, in my stash, find a contrast color. And I was pretty certain I just wanted to do like 2 color work. So I did a gauge swatch with this yarn, and I got 19 stitches to 4 inches. So what I did then was I did a Ravelry search to try to find a pattern, a colorwork pattern that would match my gauge. And this one came up, and then I realized, oh my gosh, I bought that pattern. I have had that pattern for a couple of years, so I don't even need to buy it. Yeah, so anyway, I got, this pattern is written for a DK weight or a light worsted, but like I said, my gauge matched exactly because the gauge for this sweater is 19 stitches per 4 inches. I did have to change my needle size though. I used a size 6 needle to get that. I think what happened was, this is how I roll sometimes. I just grabbed a size 6 needle to do my gauge swatch because I use size 6 needles a lot for DK light worsted yarn, and so that's how I achieved my gauge, because the pattern actually calls for a size 7. And then it also calls for a size 5 for the ribbing, which my size 5 needle and my size 4 needles are elsewhere. I don't know where they're on. I don't even know, because I don't have any projects that how do these needles just disappear? I'm not sure. But anyway, they weren't in my interchangeable needle set. So the only thing I had there that I could use for the ribbing was a size 3. So that is what I used for my ribbing, which is fine because honestly, I prefer, oh my goodness, I'm losing hair. My hair is everywhere. I prefer a tighter ribbing. I don't like loose ribbing. So going down, I honestly do often go down at least a needle size over what the pattern calls for the ribbing. Okay, I think it just looks neater. And so yeah, so size 6 for the body and size 3 for the ribbing. Another trick with color work, which I'll talk about this in my color work episode, but I'm going to mention it really quickly here because I'm not sure when I'm going to release that episode. Oftentimes, if you are a tight knitter, it is good to go up a needle size during the color work portion of your pattern. So sometimes in the past, I have gone up a needle size. So instead of using a 6 as the pattern, well, the pattern doesn't really call for a 6, but that's what I got gauge with. So instead of using that for the color work section, I could go up to a 7 so that this would not be, the color work would not be super tight and cinched, because sometimes people have a problem with that. They knit too tight of a gauge for their color work section, and so it kind of like all bunches up and cinches in. I've never really, I don't know why, but I've never really had a problem with that. I think I've always just been super conscious. Like, I remember reading about that as a potential issue when I knit my first color work sweater. And so I think that I just started that project with that in mind. So I was just very conscious about not over tensioning my yarn and just keeping things nice and loose and not pulling. But that is a tip if you have a hard time with your color work section cinching in. Just go up a needle size and then go back to the called for needle size, the size that you got gauge with for the rest of the body. Okay, so this color work, orangey, yellowy color, that was Barrett Wool Co. Barrett Wool Co. in their Woolens. What was the colorway? Let me see if I have the tag. I probably don't. Okay, I have the tag somewhere, so I'm gonna link it. I'll just write the color down below. But it was leftover. It was leftover from my pressed flowers hat, and so I thought, oh, I think that would make a really nice contrast with the gray. It's very autumnal, so I went with that, but it was a lighter weight and a different gauge than the Cloudborn gray. So then I held some silk mohair with it, which I also don't seem to have here. I had a little bit of the silk mohair left, but I literally used every single bit and had like a 3-inch tail for the Barrett Wool Co. And so I had some Knit Picks pellet that looked almost identical in color to the Barrett Wool Co. So I actually used that, held double with the mohair to knit the last 2 rounds. And I don't really think you can tell. I mean, it might be a little darker, but it's definitely not noticeable. Okay, so then I got through the yoke. I knitted on this obsessively because that's how I am with color work. It's like you're knitting and round after round a picture is appearing, and I just want to make the whole image appear. So I get so obsessive when I'm knitting color work yokes. Like, I really do. And so I think I did the whole yoke in 2 days. Now, I didn't sit there solid and knit, because although I really wanted to. I must have cast this on Friday and then Saturday, because I literally felt like I spent the entire day Saturday cooking and knitting. And it was kind of like a little treat to myself. Very unusual for that to happen. So I did spend a lot of time knitting on Saturday. But I got it done, and then I started into the body, and I realized Sunday evening, yeah, that the body was going to be too big. And I'm knitting the smallest size, but I tried it on and I got about this far in the body, and there was a lot of extra fabric, and it looked like it was going to puff out, and I knew I would not be happy with that, and I didn't want to rip it out, but I thought, why would I leave it in? I have another sweater. It's the Ruska sweater by Justin McDonald. It's completely knit except for one sleeve. And it was one of those things that I just kept forging forward, even though I had this feeling inside that I should not, because I think I just knit it. It's definitely too big. So I've come to, that sweater needs frogged. It is too big. So actually, I think I'm going to do something else with it, which I will talk about at a different episode. But I think I'm going to actually cut it into pieces and make something out of it. Because it is a large portion of color work, and it's a lot of, if I rip it out, I'm going to have a lot of just strands of yarn, and so I won't, it's not going to be, I don't feel like the yarn's going to be easy to use again. So I'm going to figure out a different way, because it's pretty, it's just way too big on me. Anyway, so that's what I was remembering when I was working on this and trying this on. So what I ended up doing was yesterday I ripped it back completely to before I even divided for the sleeves. And then instead of picking up 8 on the underarm, I picked up 4. And then what I did is I did 3 decreases. You might be able to see. I did 3 even decreases right in here. And then I tried it on this morning, and I'm going to put some video here of me trying it on because I wanted it to get long enough so I knew it was going to fit. So I didn't want to try it on prematurely yesterday. So I tried it on this morning, and I love it. I love the fit. I'm so happy that I listened to my knitting intuition and modify the pattern a bit because, yeah. So I modified the yoke because I had to. It actually has quite a bit more color work here if you look at the pattern, the way it's actually designed. And now that I think about it, I wonder if the yoke would have been too deep. I probably would have had to mess around with it. That was the problem with my Birkin sweater by Caitlin Hunter. I knit it as it was charted, and the yoke was so deep on me. And I know multiple people have had this problem. So I ended up completely frogging it, and I have it in a bag to restart. So I'm actually glad I went with this. I'm glad I ran out because I don't know. I think the yoke might have been too deep if I had done all the color work. I don't know. Maybe not. But yeah, that's all. Love it. Such a fun pattern. I love those flowers just seem so like modern Scandinavian or something. I don't know. I just really like them. So I'm kind of flying through this considering I just started this on Friday. But now it's at the boring part, so I'm probably going to slow down because it's just stockinette. And that's boring to me. I get really bored with stockinette, plain stockinette. I don't know. We'll see. But I feel like I want to just keep forging forward really quickly so that I can wear this sooner rather than later. Okay. Now, my next work in progress is a pair of socks that I'm knitting with some Drops Fabel Print. I have never used this yarn before. When I got onto Wool Warehouse to place an order for, what did I just place an order for? Oh, yes, my blanket kits, my Attic 24 blanket kits. I think this was on sale. Yes, Drops was on sale. It's all coming back to me now. Drops was on sale. I thought, oh, I've never tried that sock yarn before. And I love self-striping sock yarn because it's that addicting thing where you just keep knitting because you want to see the stripes work themselves out. So I bought, I think, enough to make 4 different socks, 4 different pairs of socks. And this is color 923, which they do, if you look on the website, I'm pretty sure they have names because I feel like one of the ones I bought was Unicorn Party. Maybe this is the one. I don't know. Unicorn something. But I thought that looked really fun. And some of those color, actually, I feel like this is very autumnal because you have the yellow, the orange for autumn, and then the purple and the black, and you know, that's more like Halloween. So anyway, I cast this on using a contrast color, and this contrast was something I received in my row 1 subscription that I used to do. It's a subscription-based service where you receive 10 minis. Gosh, I can't remember now. It's been a couple of years since I did it. You receive 10 to 12, I think 10 gram mini skeins from various indie dyers. So every month, so each month you get 10 skeins from 10 or 12 from a particular indie dyer, and then the next month it's a different indie dyer. And wouldn't you know, I do not have the tag for this one. So I can't even share that. I must have accidentally thrown that away. But I thought, oh, this would go good with these socks. So this is what I have so far. And it's very fun. Is that not fun? It's a fun sock. Oh, I'm having a hard time getting it to not be twisted. Okay, there we go. So yes, that is my current and only sock project. This is not something that I'm working on manically because I'm really in the mood to knit garments right now. And so this is more for like, take it in the car, take it when I'm out somewhere. I take this project to church with me, which I normally take socks to church because I feel like I can sit there and knit on them, and they're a small project and I can pretty much keep everything concealed on my lap. Not that it matters. I am perfectly in tune with what the pastor's saying. It's just that I feel insecure because I'm like, do other people think I'm being disrespectful and not listening? But I am listening. You guys know what I mean. Like when you're like, I listen to stuff all the time while I knit. Knitting helps me to actually focus in more. So yeah, these will just get done when they get done. I'm not in a rush, and I don't know if I'll keep these for myself or I'll give them as a gift, because I do have some people in my life who get my knitted socks as gifts at Christmas time and for birthdays, so I may just keep that for that. I'm not sure yet. But I'm just doing just a plain vanilla, which is what I always do when I'm making a self-striping sock, and I cast on 60 stitches on a size US 0 circular needle from Chalgu, which is my favorite way to knit socks. Okay, so now I want to talk about what I'm planning on casting on probably today. I'm very excited about it. Oftentimes I will pick patterns based upon yarn that I already have in my stash, because when I was earlier on in my knitting journey, I would just buy yarn that I liked. And that is why I have a lot of single skeins of sock yarn. I used to knit way more socks than garments. Now I've kind of flip-flopped the other way. So I don't have a lot of sweater quantities of yarn, but I do have some. So typically I pick a pattern based upon what yarn I have, which is what I did with the Maryanna sweater. But while I was on Ravelry, because you know how easy it is to spend time on there just perusing patterns, I happened upon a pattern by Caitlin Hunter called the Gloam. Now, whether or not this has been a popular pattern in like among other podcasters and knitters, I have no idea. I had never heard of it before. So, but I loved the look of it. It is an oversized boxy cardigan. I will say I have not had luck with Caitlin Hunter's patterns in the past. I think actually all the ones that I've knitted, garments that I've knitted that I've had problems with, have been yoked colorwork sweaters, including the Birkin, and what was the other one? I can't remember the other one, but I've had to frog both, which has been very discouraging. However, this is a cardigan, and it is pieced, and I feel like that it's probably I'm going to have better luck with it, because it's not like such a fitted thing. It's meant to be oversized. It's meant to be boxy. I'm going to, and it's, so if you look at it, it looks really beautiful, but I think it's just like pearls and knits to make this texture on it. It is, from what I was reading on Ravelry, it is a charted texture pattern. So if you do not like reading charts, then you may want to consider that. But it's knitted flat from the top down in pieces, and then you seam together at the shoulders and then the sides, and then there's a front band on it that you pick up last and knit. So this cardigan is meant to be worn with 15 to 20 inches of positive ease, which is way too oversized for me. So I'm actually going to knit, I think I'm going to actually knit the smallest size, which is a finished bust circumference of 43.5, which is going to give me about 7 inches of positive ease, which I think I'm going to like better. 15 to 20, I feel like that's going to be just way too big. I don't know, that I don't think I would like that. But it is a DK weight yarn, 19 stitches to the 4 inches, and I don't remember. Oh, I know how I found out about this yarn. I was searching the project pages for this particular pattern, and I noticed that there were probably 6 or 7 that had used Juniper Moon Farms Patagonia Organic Merino. I have never used it, but I purchased some. And this is, again, a very autumnal color. It's called Acorn. You can see here. It has 382 yards per skein, and I think, did I pay $15 a skein for this? So I feel like that is pretty reasonable for an organic merino wool. I'm really excited. I'm really excited about this because I think this is, first of all, I have alluded to the season of life I'm currently going through, and so I'm finding wearing sweaters to be challenging at times. Even this, I'm going to make a little confession. Earlier in the filming of this podcast, I felt a sudden rush of heat and I had to get up and turn on my fan because having the window open completely was not enough cool air for me. So that is a bit disconcerting because I do really love to wear my sweaters, but I'm thinking, are they going to be super practical for me, at least right now? Hopefully there will be one day that I can freely wear a wool pullover and not worry about having a hot flash while I have it on. But I am, so because of that, even though I prefer knitting pullovers, I am starting to lean towards cardigans because I think they're just going to be more practical for me in this season of my life. But this was the color. I think it's really autumnal. Again, it's called the color Acorn. It's a little bit richer and deeper than what's showing on the camera screen. But yeah, really excited about this one. Gonna get this caked up. Oh, I ordered this from Wool & Company. Several of you actually mentioned Wool & Company in one of my past episodes. You had mentioned it in the comments. Thank you so much. I love Wool & Company. First of all, they have free US shipping. No minimum. And second of all, I ordered this and I got it within, I think I got it 3 days after I ordered it, so it's super fast. And if you spend over $100, I think, which I didn't for this was $45 for these 3 skeins, but if you spend over $100, you get 10% off your total order. And they have such a nice selection of all different brands of yarn that I will definitely be using them. I think I'm trying to think if you get no, never mind, I'm confusing them with another online yarn store. But yeah, so if you have not heard of Wool & Company, check them out, and I'll link them down below too, because they are, I feel like they're going to become a good source for me to get the yarn that I cannot get locally. Okay, and then one other project. Did I call that a whip? It's totally not a whip. It's something that's going to become a whip very soon, but it's not right now. Okay, so I have knit, oh, right, I need to grab something. Hold on. Okay, so earlier in, I think it was the spring of this year, I knit a Sophie scarf, and I really like it. I like how small it is, and it's just enough to, it's not like huge and big, which, you know, it's nice because if you're a little chilly, you just put this on and it warms you up. So this is in a very neutral, this is, I think, Kitten Knit Picks Tweed, City Tweed, I think is what this yarn was. I think it was the Kitten colorway. So I wanted this because it was very neutral, so it would go with a lot of the things that I wear, a lot of my wardrobe. However, I've been thinking about this ever since I finished this one. I thought, how fun would it be to have a bright red Sophie scarf to just wear for a pop of color. So I had this in my stash. This yarn is tag, where are you, tag? Ruby and Roses yarn, and it's the colorway Canna, and it's just a really nice, almost neon type, cool toned red. I feel like I lean more towards cool tones, even in colors that you think are more warm toned. There are still versions of those colors that have cool tones, and I always feel like I just look better with cool tones. So, but anyway, I'm going to hold this double, and I'm going to knit a Sophie scarf out of this, just to have on those days when I just feel like I need a pop of color, because they come. They are coming. They're going to be here. It's going to be gray and gloomy here because it is in the winter, and I'm going to have a cheery red scarf to tie around my neck. Super excited about that. And that's an easy pattern. I've heard people complain about having to keep track because you decrease, I think it's every 8th row you have to decrease, which you do kind of have to pay attention to that, so you're always decreasing on the correct side, but I didn't find it a problem. So if you've been hearing that and that's keeping you from knitting that pattern, don't let it. It's really not a big deal. You just have to kind of be conscious of what side do I do the decrease on. Okay, so let's wrap up this podcast episode by talking about the Ranunculus knit along that I'm co-hosting with Diana and Kaity from the Fruitful Hands podcast. I have never hosted a make along of any kind on this channel, and I talked a little bit about that in my last episode, but I am very excited about this one, and we have figured out how we want to do this, so that's what I want to talk about, and then I want to show you my finished ranunculi that I've already made and show you the yarn that I'm going to use to make the new one, because what I showed you last week, this yarn up here, yes, I have already changed my mind, which that just happens, right? Okay, so these are the rules for it. First of all, it's going to run from September 23rd, which I believe is this Saturday, through November 30th, so the last day of November. The hashtag is going to be Fall into Ranunculus KAL 2023. I will put that here, and I will also put that down below. And it is kind of a long hashtag, but it's the one we're going with. So you will be eligible first of all, it's open to anyone who has Instagram. And if you don't have Instagram, because that's where we're going to be kind of keeping track of everyone's progress and pulling prizes from. But if you don't have Instagram, you just need to send me, or I think that Diana and Kaity are also going to set it up so you can send them. So whoever's podcast you're watching, when you're getting the information, you just send a picture at like the end of the knit along of your ranunculus that you've knitted. Now, last episode I said that prizes were only going to be eligible for people who have completed the sweater, but we have talked about that and decided that it is going to be open to anyone. And so even if you haven't completed your sweater, you can be eligible for the prize. And you know, I understand that not everybody has as much knitting time as like our knitting time, our knitting speed, it varies. So even though this is a very quick knitting sweater, because it is a bigger gauge, it's knit on size 10 needles, and so it is a sweater that knits up very quickly. But again, we want to just be sensitive to everybody's, you know, they're knitting, how much time you have to knit, you know, how fast of a knitter you are. Maybe you're a beginner knitter, so you're not a fast knitter yet. So anyway, having said all that, anyone is eligible to win. Now, you guys have been awesome, and you've offered a solution to the international people who are participating, because I had said last episode that the postage would be too expensive for me to ship overseas or into another country. And so multiple people had suggested giving away a free pattern if I randomly pull an international winner. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'm pretty sure that's what Diana and Kaity are going to do. So this is how it's going to work. I'm going to give away a prize, and they're going to give away a prize. So we're doing 2 separate prizes, and so we're both picking a prize from the same pool of people. So you kind of have like double the chance to win because we're both picking. And what's going to happen is if I use a random generator to pick a winner, and I don't know how to do that on Instagram, but I will figure that out. I will figure all of this stuff out. I'm not worried about it. But if the project I pick is from someone who is international, then they will get to pick a pattern off of Ravelry that I will then send to them, and I will put a limit. Maybe it'll be 2 patterns. I'll figure that out, and then I will pick another winner for the US prize, because I have that already. I have a wonderful viewer who is sending me a project bag, so I'm gonna have that. I've also already purchased a couple of things to include in the prize, so I'm gonna have both for me. I'm not sure how Diana and Kaity are gonna handle that yet. That is something you'll have to stay tuned to their podcast and figure out how they're going to handle that on their end. But yeah, so that is that. Now, I am going to link down below because some of you have never knit a sweater before, and you've asked me in past episodes when I've talked about my Ranunculus sweaters if I thought it was beginner friendly. And then when I talked about that, there have been viewers who have mentioned a particular YouTube channel who the podcaster talks specifically about knitting a ranunculus as a first time sweater. And I can't remember the details of that off the top of my head, but I'm going to link them in the video description. I'm going to go back and look in that comment section of that particular video, and then I'll link that down below. So if you're knitting your ranunculus as a first time sweater, you will have a resource for if you run into any like bumps in the road or you have questions. Now I'm going to show you mine. So this is my first one that I ever knitted, I think. And this is, oh my gosh, Madeline Tosh Pashmina in the calligraphy colorway. And it is short sleeve. It is 100% wool. Then I knit this one, I think last winter, maybe the winter before. And okay, I don't remember if, does the pattern call for an I-cord bind off? I surely can't remember, but I did an I-cord bind off. I don't remember all the details of the pattern because, yeah, for this one, because it's long sleeves. So it looks like I did a rather quick decrease here at the bottom, so it puffs out a little bit, and then I definitely did an I-cord bind off on the sleeves. But I did the 1x1, I think that's twisted ribbing for the hem. Yeah, it is. Twisted ribbing on the, pretty sure on the top too. Yeah. And this is some sort of indie dad yarn that I was gifted. I never had a tag for it, and then I held it double with a like minty green color of silk mohair from Flower Hill Fleeces. And this is a really comfy, soft, cozy, warm one. So this is like a winter version of a ranunculus. And then my last one I just knit, I think this summer, early summer, late spring, I don't even remember, but I've recently talked about this one. Maybe it wasn't, maybe it was just like midsummer. This is Drops Fabel in the petrol color. I-cord bind off, twisted rib down here. And this Drops Fabel is, I think it's cotton and linen blend, so it's a nice, cool, and very drapey. If you guys have been watching for a while, you know that I like Drops Fabel a lot for summer garments. Now, I just want to address a question that I had multiple people ask me, and I don't really have a good answer for this question, but I've had multiple people ask me how I make this pattern without the neckline being super big. And when I look at the pattern, the pictures of the pattern, the neckline is indeed very large, and I would not like that, okay? So when you cast this on, it gives you, she gives you two different options for a cast on. Let me get to that page. So she gives you a cast on for a wider neckline, and she gives you a cast on for a smaller neckline. And the cast on for the wider neckline, you're supposed to use a double twist loop cast on method. I have no idea what that is. So this might be where the little discrepancy is lying. But you cast on 60 stitches, which is not very many. And so every single sweater that I have made, this one, look, you can see the neckline is not wide at all. Like every single one, I have casted on 60 stitches. In fact, this one, I was a little nervous about that it was going to be too tight to pull over my head, but it stretched out a bit. Now, I use a long tail cast on method when I cast on, so I don't know, that might be the difference. So maybe this double twist loop is a very, very loose, stretchy bind off. So maybe that's why I'm getting a different result when I cast on 60 stitches. If you're doing the smaller neckline, you're using something called a chained, use a chain method and a crochet hook and a knitting needle, and you work a tubular cast on, which I've never done it that way because I get a perfectly sized neckline with the cast on that's called for a wider neckline. So have any of you, anyone else run into this? I don't get a wide neckline, and I'm thinking it must be because I use a long tail cast on and not the cast on that they call for. I don't know. Do you have any insight or opinion for those of you who have knit this before? Okay, and now I was going to use this whitish colored yarn, but I decided I want that for a different sweater. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going black. I am going black. I have had this Wool of the Andes worsted weight yarn. It is, actually it's not black, it's charcoal. I've had Onyx Heather is the colorway name. I've had this for over a year. I have 6 skeins of it, which should be enough, I would think. How many yards is this? I'm gonna make it enough. If I have to make the sleeves a little, like 3/4 length, that's fine, because again, I'm running hot these days, so that won't matter. But this is the Wool of the Andes, for those of you who aren't familiar with it. It is a 100% proving Highland wool. It's a hand wash yarn, so it's not super wash, but it still feels really soft to me, not the least bit itchy to me anyway. But I don't have any black knitted wear and black knitwear, and every winter I'm not so much into the black at this time of the year. This time of the year I'm going more for like reds and yellows and oranges because it's fall, and that's just what I want to knit this time of year, those kind of warm colors. But I have noticed that every winter I think to myself, I really need a black hand knit sweater. So even though it's not exactly black, it's close. And so I'm going to make my Ranunculus out of this, and I'm really excited. And it's like the Ranunculus is a magic pattern. It's like it works for any weight of yarn. You just adjust the needle. When it was originally written, it was written as a one size pattern, and you just adjusted it by changing the needle or the gauge of your yarn, the weight of yarn that you used. Now it's actually, I don't know if you can still get that free version of the pattern that's just for one size. You might be able to access it on like a website or a blog or something, but this particular pattern you do pay for. And the thing I really appreciate about this is that you cast on your yoke. Everyone casts on the same number of stitches, and then as you get further along in the pattern, and I'm looking to see how far along, I think it's like when you get to the raglan, so pretty far into it, then you start adjusting for your size. So I feel like it's a good sweater because you can kind of gauge how big you want to make it depending on what weight of yarn you're using, what size of needles. So you can pick your yarn, you can pick your needles that are going to give you the nice drape and flow that you want, the fabric that you want, and then you kind of get it started, and then you adjust it and pick your size once you're already so far into the yoke. So I like that. I find that extremely like flexible. I just like that. You know, I don't have to commit right up front with my cast on like you do with a lot of sweaters. So yes, I think that's all. So yeah, just use that hashtag on Instagram, and we will try to like feature them in our stories and stuff from time to time. I don't know the details because, like I said, this is my first knit along, so I'm learning. This is new to me. Yeah. So if you have any questions though, let me know down below, and I will try to answer them. But I'm really excited about this because it's a great pattern, and it's also just a really great sweater. It's like, it's simple, but yet it has this beautiful texture up here. And so I love patterns that are simple yet look really beautiful. All right, friends, that is all for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your likes, your thumbs up that you give this video. And what else? I don't know. I'm feeling all kinds of energy for my knitting this fall. It's actually just a very wonderful feeling. Are you feeling it as well? I feel like this is the prime time for knitters. I realize some of you are in the Southern Hemisphere, so you're going into spring, so maybe you're not feeling the same way, but those of us in the Northern Hemisphere that are knitters, I feel like the majority of us at least are like so energized and just want to knit everything, and it's a little bit overwhelming, as I talked about last episode, but it's just so much fun to be able to make our own clothing, our own accessories. Like, is so awesome that we have the ability to do that. So yeah. All right, guys. Well, until next time, have just so much joy in whatever you're working on, whatever creative endeavor that you are getting into. And I look forward to chatting with you on my next episode. Goodbye.